Commission meeting to order at 7:02. I'll take roll real quick. Commissioner Downs? Here. Here. Commissioner Dupuy?
Here.
Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Johns?
Here.
Commissioner Locke?
Here.
Commissioner McQuaid?
Here.
Commissioner Yu?
Here.
Chair Johns, who's next to read the land acknowledgement?
I would be guessing, since we were going in chronological order,
Oh, age-wise, right?
youngest to oldest.
Oh, she's definitely younger than I am. I'm guessing, and him too. Oh, you did? Oh, then probably, maybe I am. All right, I'll see. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
All right. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes.
I'll move approval.
Okay. Any seconds?
Second.
All right. Let's vote. Commissioner Downs?
Yes.
Commissioner Dupuy?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Commissioner McQuaid?
Yes.
And Commissioner Yu? Motion passes. And we can move on to public comment. No one in the council chambers, but we have someone online. Mr. Garrett Pinguello, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I was just wondering what this commission is planning on doing to acknowledge the land acknowledgement statement. I was wondering if this commission has made any attempts or tried to organize any efforts on anything regarding the land acknowledgement statement. The city's ongoing commitment, and everything the land acknowledgement claims to do. I think a good idea, this commission could possibly, create a job within the police department, hiring somebody from a Native American Indian tribe, having a dispatcher or an officer, that's Native American, I think would be great. So just wanted to say that's a way to acknowledge the land acknowledgement statement for this commission to make efforts with the police department. I was wondering if we can get an update on AB 481 and what this commission plans on doing, regarding Bill 481. That's the military equipment. Each city has to approve military equipment. So I know City of Albany already does have military equipment. It was approved last year, but I don't remember, an itemized list. Was it a drone, with a gun on it? I mean, what kind of military equipment does Albany have? Is it a tank? Or a bazooka, I'm just not sure. So it'd be kind of nice to get an update on what's going on with AB 481. And last but not least, it would be nice to get an update on what's going on with the fentanyl things in Albany happening. I know the city attorney and the city entered in a lawsuit, and so a class action. So it'd be nice to get some information back on the results of the class action lawsuit and to see if some of the money that, goes to Alameda County, if the city of Albany can tap into some of that, and we can create fentanyl awareness in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. No other public attendees have their hands up, so let's move right along to announcements. I don't have any announcements this time. Does anyone on the commission have any announcements they'd like to share? I'll take that as a no. All right, moving on to number 5, informational reports. And these are the attachments that were posted with the agenda. Hopefully you got a chance to review them. And here to discuss police data and other issues is Trish Gomez. If no one has anything to say about the informational parts at this point, we can move it along and she can give her presentation.
Should we save comments for after she concludes, maybe?
Yeah.
For the presentation or for the information data?
Just for the information, like I'm reviewing the dashboard and
You can say them now. Right now is the informational report item, so whatever comment you have, you would talk about that now.
okay. My only comment was going to be that, I see the dashboard and it shows monthly and it shows year to date. And I think, to my mind, what would be helpful is if we had sort of a running calendar, like at least a rolling 12 months, so we could identify patterns. Because we have a monthly number, it's a snapshot for the month, and a year-to-date number, which is also a snapshot. And we can't see if anything is trending, unless we were to review past data. So I just thought that might be helpful if we had,
Okay. Any other comments on the informational reports?
I just have to say it's real easy to, from where we started in September, it's real easy just to do it on an Excel spreadsheet. You know.
All right, let's move on to number 6, 6-1. Take it away, Trish.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. I thought you were going to talk about 5.1. I do have a question. And just looking
I
at
think I said that unclearly, my mistake.
No worries. And maybe this is something to take back and come back to us. Patrol citations seemed really high, higher than the average and higher than they were in September. Is there a reason for that?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Which I'll talk about in my presentation. I am basically the person who compiles the statistics. I don't do any analytical analysis. Okay. And
Is this also the time if we on 5.2, or is that a separate item? Okay. I mean, I think I definitely understand reminding people about the Open Justice portal. I do think it would be better practice for the city, especially since in a lot of years it is actually data that is favorable to the city, to be making that more easily available. I mean, that is literally available, but in a way that requires an expertise that I would guess most of the public doesn't have. And so just pulling the, the complaint, or at least some of the big, we could, help if there are too many categories on there to easily place on on a table online. That's fine, but then I think we could probably all brainstorm off of that pretty extensive table, which are the ones that people would want to know, including, total complaints, and I assume that, the ones on, the numbers on, complaints of racial inequity and so on. I think we could probably help narrow that down pretty quickly. And take something that's available but hard to find and make it easier to find, especially since I said in a number of years the data is actually quite positive for the city. And then I did have a factual question on that, which may go to how the state regulations are on what to report. There's the complaints that are resolved in a year. Then the next year lists complaints filed that year and complaints resolved. And my question is about a complaint that comes in say, December of one year. If it's resolved in February of the next year, is its resolution reported as a next year resolution? Does that make sense? I'm just trying to figure out where I totally understand why that would be the case. I just want to figure out where the resolution would appear on that data. Or if the resolution number on the state system is only the complaints filed in that year that were resolved that year.
That is something I can take back, and I can talk to the chief and ask him. I compile
Sure.
the data. I don't, that is literally what the lieutenants and the chief handle, complaints specifically. But I can absolutely ask that. Is it okay to do my introduction now? Okay. My name is Trish Gomez. I'm the Police Administrative Specialist for the Albany Police Department. I've been with the department since April of 2019. I report directly to the Chief of Police, but I also take care of tasks for the two lieutenants, anything that's assigned from them. Prior to my hiring, this position did not exist. There was no specific admin person for the police department. So it was sort of every man and woman for themselves. Whoever had the time would do the administrative tasks, and it all got done. But I'd like to think that I can help out a little bit now. I just wanted to read along the lines of understanding that we are a small police department and everybody wears many hats. So I thought I'd just mention a few of this is not a complete list, but this is just a few of the tasks that I'm responsible for specifically. As of this year, I became the HR liaison. I'm responsible for initial review of applications. I schedule and proctor the oral board interviews. I send notices to the prospective employees, applicants. I schedule follow-up interviews, and I assist with maintenance of our employment website, which we use NeoGov. I also do accounts payable for the police department, so I enter our invoices for the city to pay. I'm the point of contact for many of our vendors. I manage contracts for the police department. I assist with budget review. I submit travel reimbursement requests for trainings and other check requests. I'm a member of the recruitment team. I assist with development of recruitment strategies, including providing outreach, the outreach team with materials for prospective applicants. And I assisted with the creation of our hiring brochure that we've been using since 2019, but we've now moved on to a recruitment webpage that I also helped with. I deal with community engagement. I order and maintain and supply all of the community engagement materials, including all the items that we gave out this year, specifically at like the Solano Stroll and National Night Out. I assist the training manager. There's two trainings specifically that I schedule, which are the CPR trainings and CIT, which is crisis intervention. My general administrative tasks, I order all the office, evidence, and property supplies. I'm the liaison to most of the other city departments. They usually contact me if they need something. I compile the statistics for the chief at his request. I'm the person who compiled the dashboard for you, for the police commission. I also do monthly stats for the traffic commission meetings. I maintain our Facebook page. I order police ID cards. I handle records retention and purging. I post the public bulletin to the website. I post press releases or community notifications to the PD webpage and our Facebook page. And I also post them to the press release, which I'll show you on crime graphics. And I also maintain the PD's webpage on the city website. So I just wanted you to get a snapshot of what the day in the life of an admin employee is for a small police department. My mission is to provide support to the officers so that they can focus their attention on their duty of policing. So what I was tasked to talk to you about today is just to show you, this is our, if you can see up on the screen, this is our PD website. It's pretty common. This is what a lot of the police department websites look like. This is our homepage. But I wanted to show you specifically that there are two ways to access. We have it very accessible for commendations and complaints. We have it on the homepage. And it's also on the left side toggle board. Everything is right here. You can click on it. That's the complaint form that people would fill out. This is the complaint policy. Oh, geez, I just X'd the whole thing out. Apologies. Get right back on there. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, we'll try this again. Okay. So we've got the commendations and complaints here. We also have it on the left side. And I'm not going to go back to that again. But you can see that it's very accessible to file a complaint. We've had 0 in 2023, so we haven't even seen any this year. Also, on our left side here, we've got the Contact Albany Police. You can use this form. If it's non-emergent, obviously, use 911, or there's our dispatch center number. Pretty easily accessible here. The other thing that's very important on this page that most people use is the copy of the police report. So it's a public records request form. You just click on this button. In the future, we're looking to make this automated, so it'll just be a fill-in field that'll automatically go to the police department.
If I may add, there's also on the website that says request for public records. If you fill out the online form there, it comes to the city clerk. And so if it's a police record related, I will forward it to police department to fulfill.
So just moving down the toggle, I also wanted to mention to you about that we've got a specific tab here for alerts and press releases. So the city actually posts, they'll post it first, then it gets posted to, I'll show you again, as I said, I'll move down to crime graphics, but it'll get posted here, it'll get posted on our Facebook web page. We're not as, I will say that we're not as, we just don't have the manpower to have a really high functioning Facebook page, but we try to keep the community notified. And the city helps us with that. We've also got a specific tab for crime prevention. We've got information here on neighborhood outreach. We have a vacation home watch program. I don't know if you were aware of that. It's a form you can fill out. You drop it at the police department. They'll run by your house while you're gone. We have the resiliency plan here, video camera registration. It's not an automatic link to anybody's camera. It's just basically you give us the information where your house is. So if there are any crimes in that neighborhood, we can check with you to see if you've got any, if you have any footage that's useful. Then something that came into play very recently is text to 911. And we just wanted to give some information here about how to actually do it. It's very simple. It goes right into the dispatch center. The next tab I wanted to make note of is, excuse me, policies, procedures, and trainings. So this includes there's our policy, our main policy manual, which is updated. Anytime we have changes, again, it's another thing where the manpower, if there are people that have to go in and take a look at it first before it can be uploaded. So we try to do it frequently when there are changes. The one I know that you've been interested in is the complaints policy. That's also here on this page. You can download that. And then these are all of the trainings. This is all internal training that we've done. This isn't a list of things that we've sent our officers to, but this is everything we've done internally. And it also includes our field training manual that's in here. All of these are downloadable. You can take a look at all of that. And let's see, then there's the area coordinator program. That's also another thing that is fairly new. City has been broken into 4 areas. We've got sergeants who are responsible for each of the areas. Folks can go here, they can email directly to their area coordinator based upon the location of their residence, and they can, any types of issues they have, they can leave an email and they will get responded to pretty quickly. The most important thing I wanted to talk to you about is our crime mapping. So there is a toggle button there for crime mapping. This is a program called Crime Graphics. It takes information directly from our CAD system, which is our computer-aided dispatch. And there's a link directly here. Just click on the Crime Graphics link. You can also click on View the Map. Either one will take you there. So included in this information in Crime Graphics is the crime information. I'll go through that in just a second. But I wanted to first show you the public bulletin. This is where you can find it. We try to do it, we try to update it daily, not including weekends, because I'm a 5'8" person. I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I am responsible for this solely. I have one other person that can be a backup, but pretty much this is what I do every day. So it's just synopsis. This is all taken from CAD. It will give you pretty basic information. But we usually keep about 2 weeks worth in here if you're interested. You can, as you can see, I was prepping for this meeting, so Monday is the last day that we've done here. But as I said, we usually catch it up within the week. We've also got any press releases that have been issued. We've got them dating back to June. This is when we started with this particular program through what our CAD system is called RIMS. RIMS is the one who set up this entire program for us. So you can view any of these press releases that have been released through us or through the city. And the crime part. So basically, you can see the entire city here. Just as an example, I'm going to go, let's start at October 1st. Now you're going to see it looks empty. You actually have to enlarge the map. As you enlarge the map, everything comes into focus. Basically, it's got a legend. Let's say you want to see where stolen vehicles have been. You look for all the 11s. When you click on the button, it gives you the basic information that came from the media bulletin. You'll have case number there, incident number, in case it's something you're interested in and want to submit a public request. For the records, this is what you can use. This, something the chief just told me this morning, which I didn't even know this had this. So you can see all of the buttons here. Something that they created was called a heat map. So if you click on heat map, which is right here, it's going to give you a better concentration of where crimes are happening. Let me go back to the pin. Let's see, move this down. Sorry, I'm looking for something specific. So you can see number 7 here. Lots of crime happening there. What do you think that is? Yeah. So you can do a date search, you can do a location search, you can put in your street, see what's happening on your street. And then, as I said, if you're interested, you can put in a public records request, and you can find out what happened. Get a little bit more information. And that's about what I was going to show you. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Chair Jones, I have a question. All right. I was just curious about CAD. Could you elaborate on what sort of information that includes?
So that is the system that the dispatchers use. When a call comes in, it comes in through their phone lines, and they enter all the information into, our system is called RIMS. I think it's Records Information Management System. A lot of the police departments in California use that, and everything's entered in there. They take all they're literally talking to the person, entering everything in. It stays in as an incident unless the officers take a case on it, but that's any of the information that's on your dashboard, I'm getting it all through the CAD system.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I had a question. You have the public bulletin, basically like a crime blotter or whatever, and you mentioned that you enter that information.
Oh, pardon me, I post it.
Oh, you post it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it just pulls automatically.
Exactly.
Okay, I was just
Exactly, and then I do remove, we don't leave proper names, we don't leave any identifying information in that, so that is redacted. But other than that, it just gets pulled from the CAD system.
And then just double checking. So that will have the report from that day. If there is follow-up on that case, that would be located elsewhere. In other words, if there's a incident on a Tuesday, and if there is a arrest on a Thursday, they're going to appear, the incident will appear on Tuesday and the arrest will appear on Thursday.
That's correct. Yeah, because that does happen quite often, that something will come in, as an example, something will come in as like a petty theft, and then more investigation is done, and it's determined to have actually been a burglary, then that's why we, put disclaimer on the any stats that we pull, because I can do stats, I can run stats 1 week, petty theft is going to be one more. If I run stats the next week, petty theft may be one less, burglary is one more. That's why it's always a moving target. It's not going to be that altered, but that does happen. So yes, to answer your question, that's how it would show in CAD.
And I have another question, going back to the part you covered about the trainings. And I think you mentioned those were all internal trainings.
Yes.
Do you contract with any external training programs, like such as Lexipol or anything like that? Are there any companies that come in and train the officers?
Yeah, there have, the ones that I know of, we do use Lexipol. That's how they do our policy manual for us. I don't know if they've done any specific training, but things, just as an example, the body-worn cameras were ordered, purchased. We use Axon, and Axon did come in and do a training for the officers. This year, we outsourced CPR training, so we did hire a company out of Santa Rosa, and they came over 2 days so that we could do, basically we have 4 shifts of officers, so we planned it where 2 shifts could go on one day, 2 shifts could go on another, because it's mandatory for the officers to have CPR. So the things like that, yeah, if we know of a company, we try and look into hiring them.
Would it be possible for us to get a list of where trainings have been outsourced to? The reason I'm asking is because recently I did some, self-education on this, and some companies are more reputable than others in terms of that. So, I mean, if our police department is being trained by an external source, it would be nice to know where that training is coming from and what kind of reputation that organization has as far as it relates to our, anyway, if we could get a list of that, that would be, I think, helpful.
I can go back and check on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So I have, this is probably obvious, but I just have a sort of language question. So I'll see I think there are 3 ways of referring to what happened that I see are common on the daily bulletin. Officer-initiated activity, and then some that will say reporting party. And then there's others that begin with occurred. And I'm just trying to, like, on its face, I can understand office initiated, or I think I can. Let me say it like that. Why don't you, do you want to describe to us what falls in each of those three categories?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other categories.
I mean, again, this is not my purview, I'm not a dispatcher, but the officer-initiated activity, for example, on the one that I have up right now, this request for patrol, extra patrol, officer-initiated means that they did it on their own. They were not dispatched to an incident. Something like this one at 406, that's got a case number, that's going to be something that we probably took a call on, and they were dispatched to.
I see. So it says officer-initiated activity, but
That's-
probably was a call. Okay, that was trying to
Yeah,
figure
I
out
mean,
when
it's,
is there a call, when
it's,
is there
right,
not.
it's just a language issue, I think.
I see. And the ones that say occurred, like the 842.
Yeah, is this one, like at 10:30, you can see it was via phone call,
I see.
and somebody, reporting party, that's the person who called in.
I just wasn't certain, and I'm still may not be exactly, though I'm getting closer. If we looked at this, would we be able to distinguish which are the ones where there was a call versus which are the ones not? Or would that probably take more investigation?
You know, a lot of this language is based in the CAD system, so I can check on that. I can actually get definitive confirmation about if there's one specific way to look at it. I mean, this vehicle stop, that's going to be the officer made a vehicle stop. They weren't getting a call for that. But I see what you mean in terms of, this one occurred on 500, that's via phone call, so that was going to be a call for service. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty good way to divide them. Specifically, the officer initiated, they're doing their own thing. They're self-dispatching. They're not taking a phone call from, or they're not taking a call from dispatch. Occurred at Canes Marin, adult male, somebody called on that. Somebody called for that. Even though they don't always say via phone. Again, that's the dispatcher taking a phone call and having to enter as they're talking to the person. So sometimes it's going to be these pieces will be more detailed. Sometimes it's more bare. It just depends.
Appreciate that. Just the reason I'm asking, and if this helps you in terms of clarifying, I've heard both from members of the public and from officers about, frustration if officers are, sort of blamed for things where it's they're getting a call that they have to respond to. And so wrestling with, if there is an issue, is the instigation from the department, or is it about a sort of, potentially, a call that potentially, shouldn't have been made? And I think I've heard enough questions about, how do we try and untangle that it is a question I'd like to be able to address.
Sure. I
I
can.
get the bulletin, maybe an imperfect way to address that.
No, that's okay. I can attempt to get clarification.
Thank you.
I had a question about further data. I wanted to bring up the data taken in accordance with the 2015 Racial and Identity Profiling Act, in particular. I understand that data is submitted annually as a report to the state. I guess my first question is, throughout the year, is that data compiled on a rolling basis, or is that taken together at the end of the year for the report?
I have to tell you, out of that long list of things that I told you that I handle, actually my purview is not the stop data. It's not the RIPA data. However, I do know that the chief has told me that either he will be here in December or he's going to have someone come. It just depends on his schedule. And they are coming specifically to talk to you about stop data.
And so is it the chief or a sergeant who's in charge of the stop data? Because I understand that's probably not in the CAD system.
Well, I don't know who we would say is actually in charge of it. I suppose the chief he oversees everything. And he does oversee before anything goes up to the state. So I would imagine would be, but everybody, because we're so small, most of the office the command staff, the 2 lieutenants and the chief, they kind of know what everybody is doing. So I apologize. I wish I could say more about that, but honestly, I do not deal at all with the stop data. I know of it and I know it exists, but that's all I can tell you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question about the complaints.
Sure.
If someone files a complaint, does it stay there permanently or?
That's something I can ask the chief. I apologize, I don't know what the retention policy is for the complaints. I can get clarification on that.
Thanks.
Of course.
I had a question about complaints as well, although I don't know that you'll be able to answer it. And that was going to be, is there sort of a, because I took a brief cursory look at sort of the policy and how they're handled. They go to the chief first, and, you know, there's a procedure. Is there like a statute of limitations on complaints?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, I can't answer that.
Yeah.
But I will write that down as well. So statute of limitations to file a complaint after something's happened.
Yeah. To where they'll say, okay, that's too long ago, we're not even going to look at it.
Yeah, no, I can ask about that.
And here's another language, question on the disposition of complaints, which I think is 1008.6-.4. I would love whether, you can or you could ask for just a sort of restatement of exactly the line of unfounded, exonerated, because I notice a number of complaints in the historical data come back as unfounded. And here, reading it on its face, it appears that to be unfounded, it should mean that nothing occurred, whereas exonerated could be that something occurred but turned out to be proper. And I just wanted to know, if in practice that was the way that that's the practical meaning that has for the department, or if I'm misreading that.
Okay. I can check
It's
on,
an interesting distinction, right? Because one can imagine a complaint in which there's no instigating event at all, and one can imagine one in which there is an event, but it is lawful and just, and both of those leading to no action against the officer. But that distinction seems an important one, so I was surprised how many of the complaints listed as unfounded rather than exonerated.
okay, yeah, I can check with the chief on that. Any other questions for me? Okay.
You mentioned that there haven't been any, excuse me, you mentioned that there haven't been any complaints in the current calendar year. How about the data on commendations?
Pardon me?
On commendations, the data on commendations for, if you have that available?
Let's see. Give me 1 second. I will ask about that. I'm actually working on some letters of commendation, so that's where my brain is going. So let me double check with the chief about that. So you're talking about for calendar year?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, apologies.
All right, so no one in the council chambers. Online, we have Mr. Garrett Pinguello. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So on the complaint, or I'm sorry, on the public record request, let's say, I file a public records request for one of those incidents that happened. You know, I saw something on the police log, an incident at Target, or, you know, a burglary or a car theft, something that intrigued me or sparked my interest, or something that I wanted to know a little bit more about. But it wasn't necessarily anything to do with me. It's not my incident, had nothing to do with me. I was actually, you know, at work that day. So if I file a public records request and I had nothing to do with the incident, can my records request get denied? So basically that's my question is, if someone files a records request, can it get denied? I mean, is there a reason, you know, why the police department would refuse to acknowledge, you know, a public record request? So that's pretty much my question. I mean, can anybody file a public records request for any incident and just get information, or does it have to be someone related to the incident? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. It appears we have no other requests for public comment on this agenda item. So let's move on to number 7, discussion and possible action on matters related to the following items.
Oh, I'm sorry to be a
Yes, go
pain, but going back to the data information collection, I know in previous meetings, we talked about collecting data on the crisis response team, and I haven't seen any of that yet. Do we have an estimation of when we might get that reporting?
Not a specific one. I think it was Commissioner Locke mentioned a couple meetings ago, they just got started, so there's still not a ton of data, but we can follow up on that and see what we can get you and when. All right, and item 7-1 is the consideration of qualifications and qualities for the potential consultants for recommendation to the City Council. This is bringing forward what you flagged at the last meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very interested in hearing, you know, people's initial thoughts on this. I mean, from my perspective, there's both a desire for experience, you know, that we would hire someone who's got, you know, I think we could wrestle with how related is related experience, because it might be an unusual contract, but, you know, some type of experience we find meaningful, so that we're not asking somebody to work far outside of their prior experience or expertise. But then I'm also trying to balance that against, is there any level of long-term involvement in law enforcement that we would find would provide experience but raise concerns about, you know, about at least whether the public would see this as a reliable or external investigator. So I'm actually, I'm genuinely uncertain on, you know, we want someone who will seem impartial, and we want someone who will have the experience to know what they're doing, and how we would define that.
I was actually giving this some thought, and I think that it's going to be, should we run into this situation where we're seeking a consultant, I think it's going to be highly dependent on the situation we're addressing, you know? It's almost like jury selection. We may need to ask that person questions to either include them or exclude them from candidacy based on, if somebody has a very personal connection to something that's happening that might exclude them for, bias or whatever. So, I think obviously certain levels of education and experience, baseline would be important to identify. But if we're really getting down into the weeds, it would depend on what we need them for, what we're consulting on. If it's a particular case, like, use of force situation, there might be particulars of that instance that, they may have personal experience that would either make them a great benefit, a boon to us, or it might be like, create a sense of, potentially bias or, so that's my thoughts anyway, in general.
So might it be useful to like narrow down this universe of all the people that are out there as sort of as you said, a baseline, right? We're looking for a consultant with requisite experience who's done this before, right? So we're not looking for somebody who's consulted on, other issues related to the subject matter. I think the law enforcement experience is a separate question, and then you bring up a third consideration here, a third equity, which is, conflicts of interest. I think that those are sort of the three buckets, but I think there's, or at least I would expect there to be broad agreement on the fact that we want somebody who's worked in this field before, right? That of consulting on these type of matters generally. Would that seem to be, we seem to be in accord with that?
Yeah. I would think, and correct me if you're wrong or you disagree, that someone should have some kind of educational background or at least work experience in criminal justice. Some understanding of the law and how it's applied. That would be helpful, I think, as a baseline. But in what capacity they might have had that education or experience, I don't know. I can't say.
I think it would be interesting to know what past practice is. We're not inventing the wheel here. The city has, used consultants in this manner before. What is the past practice, and what does the law say? What are you looking for under the law? And I think, we could talk forever about that, but unless we know those things, I don't think the discussion is going to really go very far. So perhaps that's something that we should be requesting maybe in December when staff will be here to give us at least a high overview of how the process actually works.
And didn't we discuss perhaps having like a subcommittee for this? Or am I mistaking that? I gotta look at my notes.
We kind of talked about it.
If it seemed like we were moving toward, moving toward a set of ideas, we could, as with the last, charge a subcommittee to come back with a proposal. But I do think, Commissioner McQuaid is right that it would be useful to know more about past practice. I'm so sorry. It would be useful to know more about past practice and who has been hired and what have been the, even just the sort of requests for proposals that have been issued, if there have been similar ones in the past, so that we could see those. So I think that would be, I would hope that after that, maybe we'd be ready to make an ad hoc committee that could, or subcommittee that could produce something. My only, in principle, I love your idea that we would be interviewing people about a specific case. It may not be that way. That's not typically, I don't think, the way that contracts with the city have gone, right? That they go out to, to bid. And so, if we're not going to have that, then we might think about what is it we'd like to lay on the table as things we would hope would be taken into consideration in that process.
Would it be appropriate to sort of benchmark with other, municipalities around us, that are local to us, Berkeley, El Cerrito, Richmond, whatever, and see what they've done? That might be helpful to us as well, because as far as police commission in Albany, we're in our infancy here. We're the first of our kind. So it might be helpful to look at those around us that have been at this a little bit longer, see what they've done. Either as an example of what to do or an example of what not to do. We'll see.
I want to go back to your comment of us interviewing anybody. I don't think that's the intent of the city council resolution, or that's, I don't believe, our role. So I think we need to be careful about our language. If there's nothing else, Luke, do you have enough from what we've sort of tossed around here to pass it off to staff? This is sort of what we're interested in.
I think so. Anyone else have any comments before we move on?
I guess I just have sort of a question, a more general question. So we're talking about a consultant. And what would generate the need for us to do that? Like, what would be the sort of the inciting event that would make us be in a position to consider somebody? We're not just going to put a consultant sort of.
You know, in the complaint policy, it talks about using outside consultants. So I think until we have a better understanding of how it actually has worked and does work, for us to say we want to do it at this particular time, I don't think we really know. I'm not sure we know what we don't know yet.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like it's potentially we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
I know that in the agreement that the city has with the union, they mention in like the process of investigation, like internally within the department, and with the city, the potential for arbitration, like finding an arbitrator. I would be curious to know more about that process, and like as a similar process of finding an outside third-party person to come in, if that's information that could be dug up.
I think the resolution that City Council passed said that Commission receive all legally public complaints from the department timely manner, usually not to exceed 30 days, review, request additional legally public associated data, and determine whether to recommend such complaints be referred to an outside consultant for investigation consistent with the California law, independent of Albany Police Internal Affairs. And then those are reviewed by the city manager, chief, and city attorney and put in front of the council. So I think it would, as written, it suggests that it would be in response to a complaint presented to us that we felt rose to a level where it, required an outside set of eyes. So in that sense, it would be directly responsive, at least as the resolution contemplates it.
Would the consultant, like, we need it for every complaint, or would it just be like a certain degree of like complaint, like serious, like serious like violations, or just some kind of like a common complaint, like the way an officer was like talking or something?
I think the resolution leads it to the discretion of the commission, its recommendation, and then to the discretion of the council after, engaging with the city manager, chief, their discretion about, they're the ultimate authority on whether to go forward. So I would assume that if we were haphazardly sending things forward, that would create a skepticism at the council level, and so that we'd be wise to exercise our discretion. But I think that's something that we will figure out if we're confronted with those situations.
Wait, thank you.
Not to take a step backwards, but that brings a question to my mind. You're bringing up the historical data of complaints that were either determined to be unfounded or exonerated. I'm wondering, you know, who made those determinations? And was there a consultant or whatever? It's interesting.
This would be a great thing to ask, further staff, right? My reading of the policy would be that presumably in most of those cases, it was the chief, right? But yeah, I also would be interested in hearing about the practice.
Anyone else?
All right. We need to open up to public comments before we move on. And still no one in the council chambers, but Mr. Garrett Pinguello has his hand up.
Hello, everybody. I should do have my hand up. You know, I have experience with dealing with an investigator from the Albany Police Department. 3 years ago, September 25th, 2020, I came home to my wife passed away, and the police department came and came to the scene and pretty much beat me up, threw me out, and I went to the police department the next day and had over 50 bruises on my body, and I had filed a complaint for police brutality. And police department didn't like that, and so, no police department wants police brutality. And so I had filed, the complaint form and public records requests and all that to find out that it was going to be reviewed internally, and they were going to have their own personnel review their own personnel. And I was like, no way, it doesn't make sense. So they hired an investigator. And who did they hire? Someone from the city manager. City manager's pick. So we all know city manager is married to a police officer. And of course, the city manager is going to hire somebody to, defend the police department in a police brutality case. The phone number for that investigator is area code 707-853-1024. I don't have the investigator's name, but that's the phone number, 707-853-1024. So I did deal with an investigator. City manager told me that she paid him $100,000. So sounds like a cover-up. They paid him off to say, no, there was no police brutality. And then when I filed a public records request, they deny it. I even had Channel 7 News file a public records request with the city of Albany. And the police denied the public records request to the news because the city of Albany didn't want to release the pictures of the bruises on my body. They didn't want to release the videos of the police brutality. It's all kept hidden. That's why we need this review. That's why we need this commission. That's why we need a third-party investigator. We don't want the city manager to pick. Absolutely not. Common sense. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Not seeing any other members of the public with their hands raised. So we can move right along to future agenda items.
So for future agenda items, circling back, I would really like to know, or at least have some preliminary information on the crisis response team. I think it was August, I want to say, or July, when I came in and did orientation, and that they were starting that week. So now it's been at least three full months of them being on the job, and it would be, I think, important for us to see what kind of calls they're going on and what the results of those calls are, if they turn into police matters or if they're resolved. You know, obviously I have like, you know, a considerable amount of hope about the crisis response team, because I think that really turns down the temperature on some of these incidents that don't require the full force of the police department. But it would be interesting to see that data and how it is actually playing out versus, you know, what the hope was for it.
The city is hoping to schedule a presentation that they'll provide. I can't say for sure which meeting it'll occur at, but probably in one of the next few meetings.
And I don't know if this requires a separate agenda item as opposed to just a, you know, carryover of informational report, you know, or potentially staff report. But I've heard a few things come up over the course of the meeting, which I think you've already been taking notes on, including desire for more information about the implementation of complaints, you know, some complaint policies. And then I'm not going to be able to think of them all, but I don't know if you want us renaming things that, you know, people were asking during the earlier parts, or if that gives you enough to make sure that it's clear that we want to be empowered to speak about those next meeting, ideally with with presentation, but if not, at least to have them potentially available to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I took pretty good notes. I think I sort of have a feel for it.
And I did bring up to Trish Gomez the question of external training organizations. I'm hoping that we can receive that information by next time so that we can, you know, do our due diligence and look into them. And if I'm, just for full transparency's sake, the reason I asked that is because I had done some research, and some of the organizations, and one of them that I named specifically, has some complaints against it federally, you know, from people. Anyway, I don't get into the weeds about that now, but I just think it's important to know who it is that is training our officers and what their reputations are, so that, you know, we can at least be assured that our officers are being, you know, trained by organizations that we feel are doing, you know, right by the police department and by our citizens.
Trish and I will follow up with the department about that.
I think I would like to discuss the compiling of data not currently on the website or not currently available on the crime mapping portal. I'd just like to get more clarity on the process behind that. Yeah.
Any other thoughts, commissioners?
Oh, I just had one other thought. So Trish went over a couple of things on the website, the heat map and where you can see the bulletin, and the link to how you make, you know, a formal complaint. As a commissioner, would it be appropriate or acceptable if I were to, you know, put that on my own social media, like, you know, hey, we discussed this in our police commissioning. Anyone, you know, this is where you can find this information, just to promote it, because I think, as we discussed in one of our earliest meetings, I didn't even know that there was a place to lodge a complaint online. I didn't know that it existed. And I think that was part of the reason I became, I wanted to be on the commission, was to get that information out to the public. And although we're meeting, you can see there's not a room full of human beings here. There's not very many people online. I feel like part of our duty is not only to sit here on the commission and try to make good recommendations, but also to to take the information that we gather here and, disseminate it to the best of our abilities to other people in our community. So I don't know, obviously I don't want to, violate any Brown Act or anything like that. But what would be the restrictions on that type of thing?
That is public information, so you can certainly share the web link to it. Just refrain from expressing your own opinion, because any opinion or any feedback should be shared during the public meeting. Oh, and if, I was going to say something about emoji, but if it's just all factual stuff, there shouldn't, just sharing of the web link. No emojis. Not from other commissioners.
Anything else? Okay, we do 1 minute public comment after this section. No one in the council chambers. And currently, I'm not seeing any hands up. Oh, I take that back. Signe Matson, go ahead.
There I am. Good evening. Yes, came in late. I'm trying to encourage city commissions to recognize absurdity and focus on making processes and policies less absurd. So this business of having the trouble of getting the information is absurd. And I just want to encourage you to make it less so to the best of your abilities, commissioners. And I do thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. All right, not seeing any other requests for public comment. We have reached number 9, next meeting. There is a December meeting, even though it's kind of close to the holidays. It's at the usual third Thursday of the month, December 21st at 7 p.m. And just since it's so close to the holidays, I wanted to get an idea for whether the commissioners think they're going to be able to attend, or if people have travel, plans or something, just so we can plan ahead.
I will be traveling, so I could attend virtually, but I won't be in person.
You won't be able to attend as a commissioner virtually.
I will be here.
Okay. Yeah, just let us know when you know.
If by chance, what do we require for a quorum? Like if we had,
4 members.
okay.
4 members in the room.
All right. Well, very good. I don't think there's any more business tonight. We can adjourn this meeting at 8:10 p.m.